Hi everybody here at Easy Good Books. Hi, I'm Easy Good, and we're going to be on chapter 2 of the last song, Steve. Steve Miller played the piano with keyed up intentionally at parenting his children's arrival at any minute. The piano was located in a small cave of the small living room of the basement. Small living room of the beachside bungalow. He now called home. Behind him were items that requested his personal history. It wasn't much aside from the piano. Kim had been able to pick his bungalows into a single box, and it had taken less than half an hour to put everything in place. There was a snapshot of him with his father and mother when he was young. Another photo of him playing the piano as a teen. They were mounted between both of the degrees he received, one from Chapel Hill and the other from Boston University, and below it was a conference of a person from Juilliard after he'd taught for 15 years. Near the window were the three framed scholars outlining his tour dates. Most apparent through or have a dozen photographs of Josh and Bonnie, some taped to the walls or framed in strong and sitting atop the piano. And whenever he looked at them, he was reminded of the fact that despite his best interests, nothing had turned out the way he expected. The late afternoon sun was swinging through the windows, making the interiors of the house stuffy, and Steve could feel beads of sweat beginning to form. Thankfully, the pain in his stomach had listened since the morning, but he'd been nervous for days, and he knew it would come back. He'd always had a weak stomach. In his 20s, he'd had a ankle and was hospitalized for disturbance in his throat, 30s, in his 30s. He had in his appendix removed after it had burst while Kim was pregnant with Josh. He ate Rollins like candy. He'd been on Nuraxum for years, and though he knew he could probably eat better and exercise more, he debuted that either would have helped stomach problems one in his family. His father's death 6 years ago had changed him, and since the way he snapped, he had 5 years ago, he quit his portion at Sort Present 3 years ago. He and Kim decided to divorce less than 12 months later, and the tour dates began dying up until they finally ended completely. Last year, he moved back here to the town where he grew up, a place he never thought he'd see again. Now he was about to spend the summer with his children, and though he tried to imagine what the field would bring once Lonnie and Josh were back in New York, he knew only that leaves would yellow before turning to red, and that in the morning, and his breath would come out in a little pulse. He'd long since given up trying to protect the future. This didn't bother him. He knew protections were pointless, and besides, he could barely understand the past. These days, all he could say for sure was that he was ordinary in the world that loved the extraordinary, and the relation left him with a rigid feeling of disappointment. At the left, he'd led, but where could he do? Unlike Kim, who'd been outraged and generous, he'd always been more recent and boarded into crowds, though he had certain talents as a musician and composer. He leaked the sermons of showmanship, or whatever it was, that made a performer stand out at time. Even he admitted that he'd been more than observer observer of the world than a parent in it, and in the moments of painful honesty, he sometimes believed he was a failure, and all that was important. He was 48 years old. His marriage had ended. His daughter avoided him, and his son was growing up without him. Thinking back, he knew he had no one to blame but himself. And more than anything, this was what he wanted to know. Was it still possible for someone like him to experience the presence of God? 10 years ago, he could never have imagined wondering about such a thing. 2 years even, but middle age, he sometimes thought, had made him as effective as a miner, though he'd once believed that the answer lay somehow in the music he created. He submitted now that he'd been mistaken. The more he thought about it, the more he came to realize that for him, music had always been a movement away from reality, rather than a means of living in it more deeply. He might have experienced passion and catharsis in the works that Tchaikovsky, or felt at a sense of accomplishment when he'd written sources of his own, but he now knew that burying himself in music had less to do with God than a selfish desire to escape. He now believed that the real answer lay somewhere in the naturalist of love he felt for his children, and the aches he explored when he woke in the quiet house and realized they weren't here. But even then, he knew there was something more, and somehow he hoped his children would help him find it. A few minutes later, Steve noticed the sun reflecting off the windshield of a dusty Stormin wagon outside. He and Kim had pushed it years ago, and a weekend outage to Costco and family getaways. He wondered in passing if she remembered the change the oil before she driven down even since he left. Probably not. He decided Kim had never been good at things like that, which was why he'd always taken care of them. But their part of his life was over now. Steve rose from his seat, and by the time he stopped onto the porch, Josh was already out of the car and rushing toward him. His hair hadn't been combed, his glasses were cracked, and his arm and legs were on a skinny and pencils. Steve felt his throat tightened, mumbled again of how much he'd missed in the past 3 years. Dad, Josh, Steve shouted back as he crossed the rocky sand that continued his yard. When Josh jumped into his arms, it was all he could do to remain upright. "You've gotten so big," he said. "And you've gotten smaller," Josh said. "You're skinny now." Steve hugged his son tight before putting him down. "I'm glad you're here." I am too," Mom and Ronnie fought the whole time. "That's not fun." "It's okay." I ignored it, except when I egged them on. "Ah," Steve responded. Josh pushed his glasses up the bridge of his nose. "Why don't Mom let us fly?" "Dad, you ask her no." "Maybe you should. It's not important. I was just wondering." Steve smiled. He'd forgotten how talkative his son could be. "Hey, is this your house?" "That's it. This place is awesome." Steve wondered if Josh was serious. The house was anything but awesome. The bungalow was easily the oldest property on Wasser's Valley Beach, and sandwiched between two mishap homes that had gone up within the last 10 years, making it seem even more dimmer. Diminutive. The paint was peeling. The roof was missing. Someone's shines in the porch was melting it. Wouldn't it surprise him if the next decent steam blow? "It's over," which would not doubt please the neighbors. Steve had moved, and neither family had ever spoken to him. You think so, he said. Hello, that's right, on the beach. What else could you want? He motioned toward the ocean. Can I go check it out? Sure, but be careful and stay behind the house. Don't wander off. Deal. Steve watched him jog off before turning to see Kim, accomplishing Lonnie had stepped out of the car as well, but was still lingering near it. Hi, Kim, he said. Steve, she leaned into to give him a brief hug. You doing okay? She asked. You look thin. I'm okay. Behind her, Steve noticed Ronnie slowly making her way toward them. He was struck by how much she'd changed since the last photo. Kim had even gone was the all-American girl he remembered in her place was a young woman with a purple stroke in her long brown hair, black fingernail polish, and dark clothes. Despair, the obvious signs of teenage rebellion. He thought again how much she resembled her mother. Good thing, too. She was, he thought, as lovely as ever. He cleared his throat. Hi, sweetie. It's good to see you. When Ronnie didn't answer, Kim scolded at her. Don't be rude. Your father's talking to you. Say something. Ronnie crossed her arms. All right. How about this? I'm not going to play the piano for you. Ronnie Steve could hear Kim's expression. What she tossed her head. I thought I got that out of the way early, before Kim could respond. Steve shook his head. The last thing he wanted was an argument. It's okay, Kim. Yeah, Mom, it's okay, Ronnie said, pondering. I need to stretch my legs. I'm going for a walk. As she jumped away, Steve watched Kim struggle with the impulse to call her back. In the end, thought she said nothing. Long drive, he asked, trying to lighten the mood. You can't even imagine it. He smiled, thinking that for just an instant it was easy to imagine. They were still married, both of them on the same team, both of them still in love. Except, of course, that.
Is it okay if she said
My legs. I'm going for a walk. As she stumbled away, Steve walked. Kim struggled with the impulse to call her back. In the end, through she nothing lived drive, he asked, trying to listen to the mode. You can't even imagine it. He smiled, thinking that for just an instant, though it was to imagine they were still married, both of them on the same team, both of them still in love. Except, of course, that they weren't. After unloading the bags, Steve went to the kitchen, where he tapped ice cubes from the old refrigerated tray and dropped them into the measured glasses that had come with the place behind him. He had come into the kitchen and reached for a pitcher of sweet tea, found 2 glasses, and headed one to her. Outside, Josh was immediately changed and being changed by the waves as skyline flirted overhead. It looked like Josh is having fun, he said. Kim took a step toward the window. He'd been excited about coming for a week. She harassed he's missed you. I've missed him. I know, she said. She took a drink of her tea before glancing around the kitchen. So this is the place, huh? It's got cricketer. By cricketer, I assume you noticed the key roof and the lack of air conditioning. Kim flashed a brief smile. Cut. I know it's not much, but it's quite, and I can't watch the sun come up. And the church is letting you stay here for free? Steve nodded. It's broken to Carson Johnson. He was a local artist, and when he passed away, he left the house to the church. Pastor Harris is letting me stay until they're ready to sell. So what's it like living back home? I mean, your parents used to live but 3 blocks from here. Steve actually closed it all right. He shrugged. It's so crowded now. The place has already changed since the last time I was here. Everything changes. He said he learned against the counter, crossing one leg over the other. So when's the big day? He asked, changing the object for you and Ronnie. Steve about that. It's okay, he said, Raising a hand. I'm glad you found someone. Kim stared at him clearly, wondering whether to accept his words at face value, and plug into sensitive January. In January, she finally said, and I want you to know that with the kids, brain doesn't protect to be someone he isn't. You like him. I'm sure I would, he said, taking a sip of his tea. He set the glass back down. How do the kids feel about him? Josh seems to like him, but Josh likes anyone, and Ronnie, she gets along with him about as well as she gets along with you. He laughed. He laughed before nothing. Her worried exclamation. How's she really doing? I don't know, she sighed. And I don't think she does either. She's in the dark, Moody prays. She ignores her curfew, and half the time I can't get more than a whatever. When I try to talk to her, I try to write it off. Typical teenage stuff. Because I remember what it was like. But she shook her head. You saw the way she was dressed, right? And her hair and that god awful mascara. And it could be worse. Kim opened her mouth to say something, but when nothing came out, Stephen knew he was right. Whatever stage she was going through, whatever Kim's fears, Wani was still Wani. I guess she commented before shaking her head. Now I know. You're right. It's just been so difficult with her lately. There are times she's still as sweet as ever. Like with Josh, even though they fight like cats and dogs, she still brings him to the park every weekend, and when he was having trouble in math, she tutored him every night. Which is strong because she barely passing any of her classes. And I haven't told you this, but I made her take the SATs in February. She missed every single question. Do you know how smart you have to be to miss every single question? Miss Steve laughed. Kim frowned. It's not funny. It's kind of funny. You haven't had to deal with her these last 3 years. He paused. Changed. You're right. I'm sorry. He reached for his glass again. What did the judge say about her shoplifting? just what I told you on the phone, she said with a reason because explorations. If she doesn't get into any more trouble, it will be expanded from her record if she does it again. So she turned off. You're worried about this, he started. Kim turned away. It's not the first time, which is the problem. She's confused, she admitted, to seeing the circular last year, but this time she said she was buying a bunch of stuff in the drugstore and couldn't hold it all. She took the lipstick in her pocket. She paid for everything else. And when you see the video, it seems to be an honest mistake, but you're not sure. When Kim didn't answer, Steve shook his head. She's not on her way to being fulfilled on America's Most Wanted. She made a mistake, and she always had a good heart. It doesn't mean she's telling the truth now, and it doesn't mean she lied either. So you believe her expression was a mixture of hope and photonics that become photons. He suffered through his feeling about the incident as he had a dozen times since Kim had first told him. Yeah, he said, I believe her. Why? Because she's a good kid? How do you know? She demanded. For the first time, she sounded angry. The last time you spent any time with her, she was finishing middle school. She turned away from him, then crossing her arms as she gazed out the window. Her voice was better when she went on. You could have come back. You know, you could have taught in New York again. You don't have to travel around the country. You don't have to move here. You could have stayed part of their lives here. Her words stung him, and he knew she was right, but it hadn't been that simple. For reasons they both understood, though neither would acknowledge them. The charged silence passed when Steve eventually cleared his throat. I was just trying to say that Ronnie knows right from wrong, as much as she assists her independence. I still believe she's the same person she always was in the ways that really matter. She hasn't changed. Before Kim could figure out how or if she should respond to his comment, Josh burst through the front door, his cheeks flushed. Dad, I found a really cool workshop. Come on, I want to show you. Kim raised an eyebrow. It's out back, Steve said. Do you want to see it? It's awesome, Mom. Kim turned from Steve to Josh and back again. No, that's okay, she said. That sounds like more of a father and son thing. And And besides, I should really be going. Already, Josh asked. Steve knew how hard this was going to be for Kim, and he answered for her. Your mom has a long drive back. And besides, I wanted to take you to the carnival tonight. Could we do that instead? Steve watched Josh's shoulders sink in friction. I guess that's okay, he said, after Josh said goodbye to his mom, with Ronnie still nowhere in sight. And according to Kim, unlikely to return son, Steve and Josh strolled over to the workshop and leaning tin roofed out bursting the hand. Come with the pottery for the last 3 months. Steve has spent most afternoons for smothered by assorted junk and small sheets of straight grass that Josh was now exploring. In the center of the workshop was a large work table with the beginnings of a standard glass window by Josh. Seemed more interested in the weird taxidermy pieces punched on the sleeves. The previous owners sparkly. It was hard not to be memorized by the half-squirrel, half-base culture. Continue. Or the organized hand drifted out onto the body of a chicken. What is the stuff? Josh asked. It's supposed to be art. I thought art was like paintings and stuff. It is. But sometimes art is other things too. Josh wrinkled his nose, straining at the robot half snake. It doesn't look like art. And Steve smiled. Josh wondered to the standard glass window on the work table. With this his too, he asked. Actually, that's mine. I'm making it for the church down the street. It burnt last year. It burnt last year, and the original window was destroyed. It destroyed in the fire. I don't know. You could make windows, believe it or not. The artist who used to live here taught me how. The guy who did and the animals the same one, and you know him. Steve joined his son at the table. When I was a kid, I'd sneak over here when I was supposed to be in Bible study. He made the standard glass window for most of the churches around here. See pictures on the wall? Steve pointed to a small photograph of the risen Christ ticket to one of the cells. Easy to miss in church. In the choice, hopefully it'll look just like that when it's finished. Awesome, Josh said, and Steve smiled. It was absolutely Josh's new favorite word, and he wanted how many times he'd hear it this summer. Do you want to help? Can I? I was continuing on it. Steve gave him a gross nudge. I need a good assistant. This is hard. I was your age when I started, so I'm sure you'll be able to handle it. Josh Berry picked up a piece of the glass and streamed it, holding it up to the light. His experience serious. I'm pretty sure I can handle it too. Steve smiled. Are you still going to church? He asked. Yeah, but it's not the same. When we went to, it's the one where Brian likes to go, and Ronnie doesn't always come with us. She locks herself in her room and refused to come out. But as soon as we leave, she goes over to Starbucks to hang out with her friends. It makes Mom furious. That happens when kids become teenagers. They test their parents. Josh put the glass back on the table. I won't, he said. I'm always going to be good, but I don't like the new church very much. It's boring, so I might not go to that one. Fair enough. He paused. I hear you're not playing soccer this fall. I'm not very good at it. So what? It's fun, right? Not when other kids make make fun of you. They make fun of you. It's okay. It doesn't bother me. Ah, Steve said. Josh sniffed his feet, something obviously on his mind. Ronnie didn't read any of the letters you sent her, Dad, and she won't play the piano anymore either. I know, Steve answered. Mom says it's because she has PMS. Steve almost chuckled, but composed himself quickly. Do you even know what that means? Josh pushed his glasses up. I'm not a little kid anymore. It means peace as means syndrome. Steve laughed, ruffling Josh's hair. How about we go find your sister? I think I saw her heading toward the towards the festival. Can we ride the Ferris wheel? Whatever you want. Awesome. Okay, next week we're going to be on chapter 3, Ronnie. Ronnie, next week. And hope you guys had fun hearing the second chapter. And see you guys next week with a whole new chapter. Give us like a bigger thumbs up. And always remember, the Lord loves you. And here at Listen Good Books, we love you too. So, peace out, my peeps.